Before we get started, thank you to our newest member at patreon.com/dailydetroit, TJ. Cheers to you. Be great like TJ and join him at patreon.com/dailydetroit. Hello, friends, and welcome to a Friday edition of Your Daily Detroit. We're back sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. April 29th, 2022, we've made it this far, and from east of Woodward, I'm Jer Stays.
And from west of Woodward, I'm Devon O'Reilly. We're almost at May. Spring is in the air. Great to talk to you today, Jer.
Yeah, it's like Justin Timberlake said, it's gonna be May.
Oh, I'm waiting for those. I'm waiting for those memes to start popping up, which should happen any hour now, actually.
Before we get started in the stories, what are you drinking?
So, I wanted to do what I would consider a spring cocktail, and this spoke to me as a spring cocktail, and I don't think I've introduced it per se on the area, and that's a skip and go naked. So it also has a great name.
Ooh.
So
Intrigued.
You may have heard of this before. Yes, exactly. You may have heard of this before, but the what makes it interesting is the combination of beer and liquor. And so you can also do a lot of variations with this, but your classic skip and go naked is 2 ounces of vodka, about maybe 4 or 5 ounces of lemonade, a beer, which most people use like a lager. I go Two Hearted because, hey, Two Hearted is just the best. And then a little squeeze of lemon, fresh lemon in there. And you just mix it up. Large glass of ice, mix it well. It's refreshing and boozy at the same time.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not usually a fan of those liquor/beer drinks because I had a lot of experiences in my 20s. However, I'm open to trying this one.
No, it's one of those. It's a good sipper, but you be careful because you taste the beer, you taste the vodka, but you don't taste them too much, and so you probably could have more of these than you need, and you really only need one or two. But no, it's a good spring cocktail. So I'm happy with that on this Friday. What do you got, Jer?
Well, my drink has to do with where I've been, and that is Old Style. I got a big old can of Old Style right here.
Okay, now Old Style, because we're going to talk about your Chicago tryst, but tell me a little bit just on Old Style itself. Is it like a classic lager, or what kind of beer?
It's a cheap and cheerful, as one of my British friends likes to say, where is it some sort of craft masterpiece? No, but will it do ya? Yes, it will. And, I am a sucker for an old school Shield logo, so there you go. And on my recent trip, it's almost like a secondary flag, even though it's got an interesting kind of mixed history with Chicago because it's kind of adopted as a Chicago beer, but it doesn't have all of its roots in Chicago. But it's interesting like that. And over time, actually, it is now not the number one beer in Chicago. I learned that Modelo is.
Wow, that is pretty interesting. Modelo, number one beer in Chicago. Huh.
Yeah, growing Hispanic population as well.
Wow. Well, there's Jer's one sentence beer review. Old Style, this beer will do ya.
It'll do ya. And, hey, I appreciate a little bit of localism wherever it may be.
Absolutely. So, as you foreshadowed, Jer, as we're talking about respectively where each other has been, I have not left the state of Michigan, the great state of Michigan. I've been hanging out here, but you took a little trip across the pond, or across the lake, as it were. You were in Chicago recently, huh?
Oh, if I'm going across the pond, I'm seeing the people from the Across the Pond podcast. I'm going to England, right? Like, if I'm going across the pond, I'm going to go across the pond.
Can't Chicago be a kind of its own version of across the pond?
Yeah, maybe, but there aren't as many accents.
Well, but there are accents.
There are.
Not as many, but there are.
There are. Chicago, I've been a number of times in my life. And it's funny how, I don't know if this is the case for you, but you visit a place with a little bit of time and space and it hits you different, whether it's where you are in life or anything else. And I got to tell you, this one hit different for me. I will say that I spent time not just downtown, but in a number of neighborhoods. And I'm glad that over the years I've seen a number of Chicago neighborhoods, because in that way, like Detroit, its neighborhoods are part of what makes it very special. Admittedly, I kind of went north this time, Bucktown, Pilsen, Wicker Park, Roscoe Village, Ukrainian Village, a variety of kind of like topographies. It was just based on fun stuff. This wasn't necessarily a trip that was about, I'm going to go here and here. It was, there's an antique shop over here. There's a restaurant over here I want to try. And, I had the best architecture tour of my life because Chicago has so many of the same architects we do, but they built like 4 or 5 times the buildings. Like I saw Daniel Burnham stuff, which, by the way, he did the Chrysler House, used to be the Dime Building downtown, and like Mies van der Rohe times 10. It's so like mind-blowing every time I go to Chicago. And I guess this one just hit me different because like it felt, and maybe it's because I spent more time in neighborhoods, but it just felt like a place where you can go and it's honestly kind of quiet, even though there's like way more people. And I kind of loved having everything I ever wanted within like 2 blocks of me.
Okay, interesting, Jerry. So if you'll indulge me, I have a few questions for you. So from a transportation perspective, if we were doing a pie chart, was it majority foot, majority L? How did you get around Chicago?
Really, it was much more about the foot and the driving just because of time purposes. I have used the L many times. I enjoy it greatly. It made me very happy to be in areas where it was kind of rumbling along, and it worked, it works pretty well. But this trip was a mixture of things. And I think that kind of reminded me that, we have this debate in the public about transit or cars, and it really isn't. Like in a functioning place, you both have like cars and transit, like they work together. Some of the tallest buildings in downtown Chicago, one of them, the Corn Cob building, is devoted. It's just a giant parking garage, but it's artful. So that's something that really struck me this time, being a little bit more intentional. After we had Roman Mars on the podcast a while ago, I really made a point to look at my built environment as I go around and notice things. And that's one of the things I noticed. Like Lakeshore Drive could be East Jefferson with a bunch of cars, but also there's option. You can get to places and you don't have to have a car, but if you have one, you can still get there. It's not like someone's pulling your Buick out of your cold, dead hands.
Right, right. So I have another question, Jerry, and I don't get too deep, but I don't put my interviewer hat on because I'm interested in this. How did the trip to Chicago and the experiences you had there on the ground? You obviously went to different neighborhoods. How did it color your perspective on gentrification as it relates to Detroit?
Well, gentrification's a hard word to talk about, right? Because it means something different to different people. Mm-hmm. But I was in neighborhoods where, if you've ever driven through Highland Park and seen the abandoned apartment buildings, imagine a place where all those are fixed up and that the houses are there. Like Highland Park used to have like 50,000 people in it in the 3 square miles. And that is like the minimum of the density of the neighborhoods that I was in. You get an appreciation for there is so much more room for people, and it was not crazy noisy. It was not crazy busy. Like this idea that if we add people to Detroit, it's going to become like completely landlocked, difficult to deal with. I just don't think that's true. I had a thing I covered a couple of weeks ago, the opening of Breadless over at the Dennis W. Archer Greenway. And there was a representative for a council member who was speaking, who was saying, Breadless is fighting gentrification because of its opening, even though this is a company that has goals to be a national chain. And I sat to myself and I sat there and I love the Dennis W. Archer Greenway. I like that area of town. But I sat here going, sir, there is a dollar store across the street. This area is just now getting its stuff together. I think sometimes in Detroit, we think areas are really nice that are just like, it's getting its stuff together. It's great. It's solid. I would live there. But is it luxury? No. Mm-hmm. So what do you define gentrification as? If you say that gentrification is about the presence of African Americans, okay, that's a different argument. And that's a different thing completely.
But that's not the real that's not the real definition then. So
but that's the definition that's used here.
That's created. It's not what it is. So I think it's we can only go so far, Jerry. We can't just play with definitions and create new meanings for things.
Right. And I mean, I respect that idea that it's important that, Detroit is a majority black city and there's representation in spaces. But on the other hand, when you look at the money and the choices people are making in Metro Detroit, they're moving to the suburbs. Mm-hmm. Black people are still fleeing the city of Detroit. So What Detroit's doing isn't working. I look at it and go, a lot of the things that we do here, they're great. And I understand the thought of like, oh, it's shiny in downtown. It's like a few blocks, man. Like when you go to Chicago, like all of Gilbertville is like a tiny corner of a neighborhood. Dan Gilbert would be just another billionaire, right? Like Dan Gilbert is, and I think that's the thing of scale. And so when I think about the potential that Detroit has, and I look out my window and like I talk to people in my neighborhood and they're like, well, we don't want this new housing project or something like that. Man, I can look out my bedroom window and not see a soul for 3 hours walking down the street.
The density thing is huge.
The density thing is huge. And I think we have to separate the idea of like representation and like saying that all development is bad. How about we have the development being done like with Sonia Mays and other people, like it is being done by people who want to lift up the community. But to say that like things are working, I think that's the biggest thing that's sad to me. And you know, like total personal reflection. You look at things differently when you're in your 40s and you don't have kids and you go, you can do what you want to do. And the reality is that for the same amenities, I could live in Wicker Park for cheaper than many of the apartments in downtown Detroit. And that boggles my mind.
It boggles my mind to hear you say that.
Oh, I mean, I pulled up the apps and I looked. Like I was literally on the street walking and like, there's a for rent sign. What does it look like? And the magic of apps nowadays, like it's different than 10 years ago. Just like, oh, what's here? And I'm like, damn, there are places for rent that are more in my neighborhood in the North End than the place I could rent right here. And I would have everything within walking distance. And so like, I love Detroit, and don't get me wrong, like this isn't like a slam Detroit fest, but it is I think we can do a lot better. And I think our administration and everyone else involved, like we could think bigger and look at ways to lift everyone up. As long as Detroit residents do not make, you know, 50 grand a year or something closer to the state minimum, there is no way we can fix the issues of Detroit. And I don't mean to do that by just adding new residents, but lifting up the floor of the people who are here. This town needs money. I think that was my biggest takeaway. Investment in resources and job opportunities. And we think we're done. And we are so not.
Yeah, good point, Sharon. And honestly, I mean, that's kind of a prevailing theme that I see in other cities that I've been to recently, whether it be Charleston or San Diego. It's all about, or Boston. It's all about that density and economic development and economic investment. And that's not a 4-letter word. I think when it's done right and when it's done equitably, you know, we can speak about economic development in a positive way. But at the end of the day, you got to create that density. You know, it's okay to have more people living in one space, and there has to be options at the top of the market and at the lower end of the market to create an equitable city that different people from different incomes and backgrounds can all share.
So I went off there, Devon. I'm sorry. A little ranty.
No, I don't have quite the same grand soliloquy for my adventures. I just happen to have the best meal that I've had in 3 years or pre-pandemic.
I'll take it.
Recently. So this may not be new for some people, but Barda, which is the former magnet space on Grand River there, you know, it's near the Ochre Bakery. It's just structurally, it's really cool. It's got the grill and the big grill bar space in the middle of the restaurant, and then the tables are all kind of around. But they're very grill heavy, so everything has that kind of like char grilled taste. If you don't like grills, if you don't like the taste of grilled food, then maybe you will hate this. But my wife and I went there with some friends. Their short rib was literally fall off the bone. You had the grill marks on it. I've never had short rib like this, where I've had it tender before, but just that kind of flame grilled taste was just unbelievable. It also has a lot of good vegan, vegetarian options. We got a really good beet salad. We got some grilled potatoes, cocktail menu, full cocktail menu. The bartenders do a great job of kind of mixing up things for you. I did a mezcal old fashioned that was just amazing. It was nice to be out and, you know, eating out. The place was packed. You had to make reservations. But it kind of, you know, it harkened back to the pre-pandemic days when we had packed restaurants, everybody enjoying themselves. And yeah, I mean, the whole experience was just the best meal I've had since probably 2019.
Isn't everything wood fired there?
Yes. It's wood fired. You taste it. I mean, you definitely taste it on all the food, and they do a good job of incorporating that kind of taste, that grilled taste, into basically all of their dishes.
All right, let's get into the news. I-94 has been selected as kind of the hub of this Cavnue thing that we've mentioned a few times on the show. We've also gotten some bewildered questions on what exactly it is. I want to talk about it because it touches a lot of communities on our listening area, not just in the city, but into the suburbs. I-94 is an important corridor. And I want to talk about, like, why are we needing this infrastructure? Everyone talks about Cavnue. I saw stories about it. But Devon, you kind of work with this stuff more often than I do. So can you kind of explain, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've talked about this before, but this is even more kind of tangible stuff because they recently just announced that they have raised $130 million in this recent round of funding. So this isn't just necessarily speculation like perhaps we've done on Cavnue stories before. This is actual, the money is there, it's happening. There's going to be, shovels in the ground, so to speak, although we're not talking about a traditional project like that. But I actually got to talk to the head of Cavnue in Michigan, and the CEO of Cavnue was in town. They're Washington, D.C. based, but he was in town for an event that actually the chamber did. And so I got to hear firsthand about Cavnue's plans and what they're doing. And, this 25-mile stretch of I-94 is really going to be looked at as how can we create the road, the corridor of the future. And it looks at, 94 and then Michigan Avenue is kind of a secondary focus. Cavnue had initially looked at doing Michigan Avenue as their main focus, but the infrastructure of Michigan Avenue, there's a lot of utilities buried beneath the road. And so there would have been a lot of digging and stuff that would get interrupted, things like that. So 94 was just a cleaner corridor to use. But this is, and we've said it before, this is going to be where you're going to see autonomous shuttles, autonomous vehicles. They will be on the road, and we will be a leader in this. I mean, this is not something that everyone's doing, and no one else is doing this, frankly. So Michigan is really going to be leading in this, and you're going to see a lot of cool stuff getting tested along I-94. There could also be dedicated lanes for autonomous vehicles in the near future here. So a lot of really cool futuristic stuff that we talk about and kind of speculate about is going to be happening before your eyes in the next few years.
It's exciting, especially with its proximity to the Ford campus and everything. Now, is this basically telegraphing to me that when it comes to autonomous, that you need the infrastructure to talk to the cars? Like this whole idea that some automakers have that everything's going to be on board the vehicle. It's going to work a lot better if the roads can talk to them.
Jared, that's exactly the point.
Okay.
And, I speak with a little bit of authority on this because it's kind of some of the stuff I do in my day job, but we need to kind of level set on where we are at in certain things. We are not even close. We're not even close to the time where autonomous cars will just be driving around the rural stretches of states in Michigan and just, going all over the suburbs. And no. That's really far away. What we first have to get down is, like you alluded to, Jer, is these fixed routes, is these connected highways and stretches of road where the cars are talking to each other. Because the biggest issue is you cannot have fully autonomous cars driving on roads with people in, pickup trucks from 1997. That just is a recipe for absolute disaster. So you have to have a kind of smart highway where the cars are talking to each other, the road is talking to the cars, everybody and thing is in communication. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about smart roads, Jerry, is literally roads that are speaking to and communicating with the vehicles that are on them. And that's what this Cavnue project really represents, is you're going to have a road that is talking to the vehicles that are on it, and they're communicating, and in that way, it will be much safer, and it'll be much more controlled, and that's how we're able to deploy this, rather than just set out a fleet of autonomous cars throughout the region. That's not realistic, and it's really not safe, frankly.
Now, down 94 as well is Fairlane Mall. And you kind of have some information on what's happening over there. I know there's been some eyes on it about development. There was that little residential piece that we were talking about, but more is on the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going through a little bit of turmoil, and I don't necessarily mean it in a bad way. It's just a lot of that kind of mergers and acquisitions type of stuff. But it's finally, and from my sources, Jer, a deal is imminent, like within days, or maybe by the time you listen to this, a deal will be in place for Centennial Partners to purchase the mall. They're a Dallas-based company. Everything that I'm hearing is they're the type of company that has a great reputation for developing the properties and investing in the properties. I'm hearing that there's going to be multi-million-dollar renovations for the JCPenney there, for the Macy's there, the PF Chang's there. Fairlane, like most malls, has been getting a little dated. But there's going to be an injection of millions of dollars in capital to really relook at the mall in Fairlane, and what are some new big boxes that could go there? What are some interesting projects that could come about in Fairlane in terms of large scale developments in that area? There's still a lot of possibility there. So it's kind of a new day for Fairlane Mall, so to speak. And reports of the demise of Fairlane were greatly exaggerated.
What do you want to see most out of that property?
What I would like to see most is really for it to become a town square of sorts, where people from not only Dearborn but adjoining cities and nearby cities can kind of come to gather, whether that be to experience concerts and music, movies. I mean, they really need to improve that theater there, and they know that. Places for people to gather for live shows, for events. They had the festival, Good Morning America. On Friday morning, featured the Ramadan festival that's been taking place in the parking lot. Jared, they have 40,000 people on Friday and Saturday nights at that festival, and 20,000 people a night on weeknights for the Ramadan festival.
That's awesome.
It's incredible, and it shows this parking lot of Fairlane comes alive for 4 hours between 11 and 3 a.m. So people who kind of have that connotation of Fairlane's not safe. Bullshit, it's not. 20,000 people are hanging out at Fairlane between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. and there has been no incidents. I think there's really good possibilities for it. I really think it can become that community, and I want to make it a regional gathering spot. I think that would be really cool to become kind of a regional gathering place.
The Michigan DNR is planning to add road trolley service to Belle Isle. 1, maybe 2 trolleys that will go between some hot spots on the island. I think it's a really cool development. I like to see this kind of investment. They have not selected a vendor yet. I believe it's down to 3 different vendors. Bridge Detroit also additionally reports that the casino is getting a new roof. The kayaks are coming back, which I personally am excited about. I have a wonderful core memory of kayaking on Belle Isle a few years ago. I should share some of the pictures. And and this is something we've mentioned a little bit with Todd Scott and the Greenways, that there are a number of new trails and things. I think this is going to be something that's cool and as a start in the right direction to looking at Belle Isle as a place is how it was designed, which is you keep the cars contained and you maximize your green space and your space for people.
Yeah, you're completely right, Jerry. It has become a situation where it's become a kind of a detriment to the success of Belle Isle, is that on the weekends, particularly in the summer, it's just, you get just so congested and choked out with vehicle traffic on Belle Isle. You need to do something to alleviate that so it can truly be experienced and enjoyed as a park, as a nature preserve that it is. So hopefully the trolley will go and kind of help to that. Now, let me ask you this. So getting to what it is and what it isn't, this trolley is not going to take you to Belle Isle. It will just take you around Belle Isle once you get there.
I read on that because for me, I have a lot of memories taking the 25 to the bus, to take the Belle Isle bus and go around and go to like the old zoo that was there. And this is not the case. This is something that is within the island.
Okay.
So that's
to drive there.
Right. And I mean, DDOT is overstretched to the max right now anyway, that it's amazing that they've been able to get their Claremont line back and their Tireman line back. Like expanding service, I don't think is something that they are in a position to do with the amount of drivers they have. So I think they're going with private service on this one.
No, it'll be great to have, though. I hope it clears up the congestion. And Belle Isle is such a massive space. People don't realize. I think some people don't realize. So yeah, it's hard to go, on this without, you can't do it on foot basically. So having a trolley is great, and then you can just kind of park and explore the island on your own.
In a quick bit of restaurant news, Melody Baitens over at the Detroit News is saying that the old Anti-Hero in downtown Ferndale is going to become a restaurant called Tiger Lily, as well as have a small tiki bar called My Tiki. Tiki is a really big thing right now, Devon.
I love the tiki culture. It's so cool. The music, the vibe. Unfortunately, I'm too young to really have experienced the era of tiki bars in Detroit. The best I can do is try and recreate my own. So that's been a little project of mine for the spring, is to create a tiki bar on my back porch of all places.
Well, this tiki bar is going to be about 900 square feet, so I think that's about 3 times your porch.
But the drinks at my place are much cheaper.
That's true. Although, we were talking about dense and walkable spaces. Ferndale is one of those. Also want to mention Tiger Lily if you're into the sushi thing. There's about 4,000 square feet in total in space, and I will link to the story for more information. Now, this weekend, Flipside Records will be reopening in Berkeley. That had been in downtown Clawson for quite a while. It's memorabilia, vinyl, all that kind of stuff. Just wanted to give that a shout out. I will put a link in the show notes to their Sunday party. And then not this weekend, but next, Ye Old Tap Room is going to have their Prohibition party. That's going to be in Grosse Pointe Park right there on the Detroit border. Doors open at 7 p.m. with beer 5 cents with the purchase of a commemorative mug, with music starting at 7:30. I want to give people a heads up. I know it's a week out. The Old Tap Room is one of the venerable establishments that has been around a very, very long time. And so if you want a little bit of that like throwback energy, and honestly, there's some other beers you can check out right on Charlevoix there if you want to. Something to check out next week.
What a fine place to celebrate the end of Prohibition, which was just such a stupid and terrible mistake in the history of of the history of our country, one of many, but unfortunately one that we can celebrate.
And before I let you go, of course, we have to mention Cinco de Mayo and the 57th annual Cinco de Mayo Parade and Festival right here in Southwest Detroit. It's just been a thing for a long time. It's something you're going to want to check out. It's a 2.2 mile parade route running from Spring Wells and will go east along West Verner Highway and end at West Grand Boulevard. Floats, marching bands, mariachis, and everything starts at noon and runs till 7 on Saturday, April 30th and Sunday, May 1st. The parade starts at noon on Sunday, just to be clear. So there's just going to be a lot of things happening. If you're going to do Cinco de Mayo, do it in Southwest Detroit and check out like all the things authentic, right? Like if you're going to do it right.
Please do. And I don't want to disparage any chain restaurants, although I don't have a problem doing it. But don't friggin' go to On the Border and celebrate Cinco de Mayo. That's crap. Go celebrate at Southwest, or go celebrate at your local Mexican restaurants. Patronize small businesses, but definitely celebrate Cinco de Mayo. I mean, why not? One of my favorite holidays. Any booze forward holiday has a place in my heart. So really like to see. Should be good weather for it. So I hope people are out there celebrating and celebrating safely. And look forward in a early happy Cinco de Mayo to our listeners.
And we are done for today. Devon, I have one little extra bit of breaking news to put in your calendar.
All right, Jared, what do you got for me?
Our 1000th episode party will be June 10th. So we have a date.
Yes, we have a date.
It will be a happy hour. So something in that range. There will be more details. Yeah, so it'll be Friday, June 10th. I cannot wait for it. Also, June 4th, we will be at Pride, Ferndale Pride. And we'll be at the Mackinac Policy Conference that last week of May. So a very busy month ahead for us at Daily Detroit.
Very, very busy month ahead. I think I might see you up at that Mackinac Policy Conference.
You don't say.
we might raise a glass or 2 or 10.
Well, thank you very much to our listeners. Thank you for listening to my rant. I do appreciate you. Sometimes you just have feels, right? Thank you to Cheyenne Nocerini, Randy Walker, Fletcher Sharp for making this thing go, as well as our members. You can support us on a monthly basis at patreon.com/dailydetroit or a one-time thing, buymeacoffee.com/dailydetroit. With that, I'm Jared Stays.
And just to remind people, Detroit is still better than Chicago. I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.